Kevin Garnett just called Boston's biggest trade in years a mistake, live, on his own show. Jaylen Brown, the man who won the Celtics their 18th championship and the 2024 Finals MVP trophy, is now a Philadelphia Sixer. Garnett's exact words, "This is one of those moments where you don't break a great thing up." And Garnett isn't the only Celtics legend saying it. Here's what almost nobody has connected yet. This wasn't Boston's first attempt to trade Jaylen Brown, it was the second. Here's what's coming. The Celtics' own assistant general manager, on the record, denying this trade was even being discussed, months before it happened. The other superstar Boston tried to package Brown for, first. Philadelphia's answer that made this deal look small by comparison, a former MVP for $8 million. And the one question Boston's front office still hasn't actually answered. 3 years ago, Boston made Jaylen Brown the richest player in NBA history, a 5-year, $303.7 million Supermax extension, the biggest contract the league had ever handed out. 12 months later, he backed it up. 20.8 points, 5.4 rebounds, 5 assists a game across that championship series, 21 points in the clinching game alone, enough to win him the Finals MVP trophy outright. Now, 3 years after signing that record deal, he's gone. Start with the trade itself. On July 1st, 2026, the Celtics sent Jaylen Brown to Philadelphia straight up. In return, Boston got Paul George plus 4 draft picks. ESPN graded it. Boston, a D+. Philadelphia, an A-. Their reasoning: the swap makes Boston worse and lowers their own ceiling, while it turns Philadelphia from a fringe playoff team into a real title contender. Garnett went further than a grade. On his show, KG Certified, he called Tatum and Brown probably the most dynamic duo in the league to him, and said it would have had to have been something detrimental to break that up. Then he compared it to Minnesota trading Karl Anthony Towns, a deal the Timberwolves are still kicking themselves over. His words, "I think Boston is going to look back on this." He's not alone. Paul Pierce, on his own podcast, called himself a little disappointed and said the writing was on the wall. Pierce knows what he's talking about because Boston traded him too back in 2013. He told Brown through the mic that this is what a Celtics career gets built on, not being respected. And Boston Globe columnist Dan Shaughnessy put it even harder in print, one word: stupefying. His verdict on the return Boston got back: 40 cents on the dollar. He ranked it among the worst trades in Boston sports history, in the same conversation as the Mookie Betts trade. So why did it actually happen? Publicly, Celtics president Brad Stevens calls it a flexibility move, the kind of call every front office is being forced to make under a new salary cap system that punishes teams for stacking multiple max contracts. He told Brown directly weeks before the trade that if Boston ever moved him, that would be a sad day for me personally. Privately, the timeline tells a very different story. 2 months before the trade, Brown vented on his own Twitch stream after Boston blew a 3-1 series lead and lost in the first round to Philadelphia, the first time a top 3 seed in Boston's conference had collapsed like that since 1984. Jason Tatum was ruled out with a knee injury just 2 hours before Game 7. Boston lost that game, 109-100. Joel Embiid, the man Brown called a flopper that same week, had 34 points. Tyrese Maxey scored 30, 10 of them in the fourth quarter alone, closing Boston out. Hall of Famer Tracy McGrady reported that Brown's frustration lies deeply within the organization. Brown denied it, on the record. "If it was up to me, I could play in Boston for the next 10 years. Stevens backed him up too, calling their conversation nothing but positive. 2 months later, Brown was on his way to Philadelphia. This time, he told a different story. He said the process showed a lack of respect. He said, "Boston packed me up." Somebody was not telling the full truth back in May. But here's where it gets more complicated because it wasn't Brown. Weeks before any of that Twitch drama, Boston's own assistant GM, Mike Zarin, told The Athletic on the record, "There hasn't been anything close to seriously trading Brown." I'm not sure where all that reporting came from. A named Celtics executive denying it in print. And according to Shams Charania, that denial wasn't just early, it was already false. Because months before the George trade even existed, Boston had already tried to trade Jaylen Brown once for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Per The Athletic, when the Celtics pursued Antetokounmpo before Milwaukee ultimately sent him to Miami instead, Boston's offer would have started with a straight one-for-one swap, Brown for Giannis. He would need to be part of any deal, full stop, before Boston even considered expanding it further. It fell through. Nobody outside the building knew how close it came. The George trade wasn't Boston panicking after one bad series. It was the second time in the same year the front office tried to move on from Jaylen Brown. Which raises the real question nobody's actually answered. If cap flexibility was the whole reason, why does the paper trail show Boston shopping Brown for a top 5 player before they ever shopped him for a declining one? And once the George deal was done, it moved fast. Per Karania, Boston was strongly shopping Brown to 8 to 10 teams in the final days. Philadelphia simply stayed in it the longest. They were, in Karania's words, the last team standing. One person Karania was clear about, though. Brown himself never requested a trade and never asked out of Boston. Whatever this was, it wasn't Brown forcing his own exit. And Boston didn't just lose Brown. Weeks after the trade, Philadelphia added another superstar, and it barely cost them anything. LeBron James signed with the Sixers. 2 years, $8 million, a massive pay cut from the $52 million he made with the Lakers the season before. Now Brown isn't walking into a rebuild. He's walking into Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and LeBron James. Philadelphia's title odds moved from 60-1 to 9-1, tied for third best in the league. Their conference odds jumped to second, behind only the defending champion Knicks. Even Colin Cowherd, who's been openly critical of Brown's off-court behavior, citing anonymous scouts who claim Brown thinks he's the smartest guy in every room, still landed on the same basketball verdict as Garnett. Boston got worse. Brown heard the clip. He clapped back on his own stream. "We've got to stop with the anonymous sources." Cowherd's actual defense of the front office isn't that the return was good. It's that Denver and Milwaukee both got squeezed by the same new cap rules for holding on to expensive championship cores, and Stevens didn't want Boston to be next. That's the fairest version of Boston's case. But Paul George isn't the safe bet that framing makes him sound like, and he isn't cheap either. He's still owed roughly $57 million for this season alone. Since he left Oklahoma City, he's played more than 56 games in a season exactly once. Last year, injuries limited him to 41 games. And last summer, before any of this trade drama, he needed knee surgery just to fix a workout injury. Boston didn't just trade a Finals MVP for a declining star. They took on one of the most expensive injury risks in the league to do it. Boston did keep something real. 2 future first-round picks, 2 seconds, including an unprotected 2031 first from Philadelphia. One analyst's read, either the Celtics quickly package those picks for the next star, or they're content with another year of standing still. Nobody in Boston has said which still. And the relationship this trade actually broke might not be the one between Brown and the front office. It might be the one between Brown and Jason Tatum, the guy he won that championship with in the first place, back when Brown was still the 3rd overall pick fans in Boston were booing on draft night in 2016. As of early August, Brown says the two of them still haven't really spoken since the deal. "It's been a lot of emotions, a process," he said. "I'm still processing it to some degree." 2 men who won a title together, standing on opposite ends of the conference now, and neither one has explained what actually happened between them. Philadelphia plays Boston twice this preseason, in October. Then, on October 22nd, Brown and LeBron James share a home floor together for the first time in Philadelphia's regular season home opener against Cleveland. Brown gets his first real game back in Boston as a visitor on January 21st. By then, everyone will know whether Garnett called it right or whether Stevens' bet on flexibility over loyalty finally pays off. Right now, the only side of that argument anyone's actually gone on record about is the one that says Boston is going to look back on this.